Welcome, everyone, back to Bloodbath Tactics. I'm your host, Benjamin. This is your host, Cass. We have the full house once again, bringing it to you from Calgary, Alberta, the Calgary Podcast Studio, rocking it out. David, Fraser, how are we doing today?
Good. Things
Excellent.
Are good.
Very
Excited to be back.
Yeah. Gearing up for this weekend?
And it's tournament week.
It is tournament week in Calgary.
Yeah, it's a big tournament in Calgary.
We have a big, juicy tournament here in Calgary. It is the Alberta Classic, which is one of the biggest solo events.
I think it's been the biggest
Alberta.
It's the biggest one in Calgary.
It was
biggest
until
in
the
Calgary,
Edmonton
sure.
Open.
Right. We do have the big GW Edmonton Open next month, but for now we've got, as of recording today, we are 5 days away from game time. 6 days away?
Yeah, it's
How does math
Monday the 12th?
Yep, that sounds right.
Yeah.
5 days away. That's how math works.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so 5 days away. I'll start this Saturday, 8 a.m.
Yeah.
8:30 we're rolling dice.
And we figured what better time to get into kind of somewhat of a meta-analysis. For those who may not be super familiar with competitive play and go to frequent tournaments, what do we do as players to get ready? Mm-hmm. What meta considerations do we take into consideration when we're making a list, when we are picking a faction, all these kind of thoughts that we go into, because we all fancy ourselves competitive players. And we want to give you some insight. David, even you
are
a competitive player.
Sometimes.
Okay, 3-2.
One time. Okay.
Nah, he had a good
That's
run
okay to
at
go
LVO.
3-2. It's still a positive record, so.
Yeah, as long as you're positive,
Yeah.
you're laughing. Before we get too far, though, everybody, I do want to say, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We have seen a lot of good growth, especially since the new studio and bringing on the boys.
We're so close to 1,000.
We are right there. We're right on the cusp of 1K.
Yeah,
we
that's crazy.
got to make the push.
You know, we started this, I guess a year and some ago, just to talk a little competitive, and we're glad that you guys like it. We also do have members too, so if you really like our content, please consider being a member. It's $3 a month. It's the price of a coffee. The studio isn't, free. We do all pay for it. It keeps the lights on. It just keeps the product going and keeps the content, rolling in.
Yeah, and even if you can't, subscribing is free. Just hit the button. Takes no time. But it also lets us know that we are doing good work, that you guys like it, you like the content. If you can't join, it's all good. We would love if you could, but show the video to a friend, get more eyeballs on the product, and that way we know that you guys like what we're supplying.
Yeah, and this one's going to be
I
fun.
don't know,
Why'd you do that with your hands?
Little something.
This one's going to be fun, too. We have a little whiteboard that we made up here that we're going to show out layouts.
Yeah.
I know we always talk about the layouts and say, hey, go to big L here and then, little L over here. But now we brought a whiteboard and we kind of want to show you what we mean by it and have arguments and I'll put our...
We have visual
opinions into it,
we have visual aids now.
Visual aids.
Visual HIV.
Whoa, no. Visual aids. And also what we're going to do at the end of the show, or the second half of the show, we kind of polled our group. So like we mentioned before, we are hosting a competitive league, the Calgary of Warhammer 40K Calgary Championship, and we polled some of the league members for questions that they wanted to ask us. Some of them are faction related, some of them are more general tournament related, and we want to go through, give those guys some shout outs for good questions and give you guys some good answers. So
I think small spoiler alert, a lot of the questions are about DG.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'll be in the hot seat a bit, but that's okay.
People are literally like, hey, Cass, how do I beat you?
Yeah.
Here's my question.
Well,
I would also like that question answered. So we'll see later in the episode if Cass will give us insight or not.
Yeah, I don't mind. You still got to do it.
That's true. That's a very good point. Well, why don't we start on that side of the room? David, going into a big tournament. You just had a big event in LVO not that long ago as well.
West Coast.
Sorry, West Coast. My apologies. Not LVO. Sorry. West Coast. Thank you.
But you've been to a few LVOs too, right?
Three actually.
Damn.
Wow.
There you go. What is so? Let's just start off. What do you going into this tournament this weekend? What does the meta look like to you? What is your consideration when picking a faction? What are some things that you're going through your mind?
For sure. So, lots of people don't have the privilege of picking different armies. So I'm just going to come at it from the perspective that you have one army that you can take and maybe have a decent wide range, a decent range of that army that you can take. First thing to consider is what are you best at playing at? And then maybe second is how can you flex into the current meta? So current meta right now is up in the air. We don't really have the clearest idea of how Death Guard is going to affect it. Then they're going to be really, really strong. But outside of that, we know kind of the big units. Like, what are the scariest units for Death Guard right now? Death Shroud.
Yeah, for sure.
Death Shroud.
Mortarion, question mark?
Poxwalker spam.
Yeah.
Mortarion is a beast as well.
Yeah.
I think his rules are very, very, very strong. His points can kind of, they reflect it, but he's something to consider for sure.
Yeah, so you're looking at like higher toughness, elite infantry vehicles. So consider how many people are going to be bringing like the meta armies in your community, and are you going to need more anti-tank, more anti-infantry, and kind of use that to your list building advantage a little bit. Outside of that, there's for bringing your list, just bring what you're best at, and that's usually just going to yield the best results.
For sure.
It'd be tech 400 points for your
like you don't want to be scrambling, learning your own rules in the middle of a tournament too. Like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Like, you really want to know your rules. It will give you the best opportunity to do well at a tournament.
For sure, and that's I prepared some bullets just
Please share.
And that's my first bullet is just know your rules.
Yeah.
Reread your own rules the night before the event.
Good call.
It's gonna help like manifest the right decisions when you get to
the
table
secret type stuff.
Oh, I remember all my data sheets and profiles. It's gonna make sense if I line this profile into this and this. It just can't hurt. It can't hurt. Just reread.
A refresh, yeah.
And sometimes you get your rules wrong. So just reread your rules. Doesn't matter. I've been playing Grey Knights consistently for over a year. I still reread my rules, and I still notice small little language caveats in the stratagems and things like that.
For sure.
Specific to events that have the missions pre-posted. Fortunately, Classic doesn't. But put the missions in the Tabletop Battles app before the event starts. So when you get to table, it's one less thing you have to do. You're already scrambling, putting down objectives, asking your opponent questions, setting up the table. Just save yourself a little bit of trouble.
Well, if I may, for anyone who's new listening and new to tournaments, there's an ITC battle app that you can just download off of Google Play or the Apple Store. It's free. It's run by Goonhammer.
I think it's Goonhammer,
yeah. So they have little articles that they connect to too, but it has all the updated rules. It's really easy. You can just set up a mission. It has terrain layouts. It even on the terrain layout map, it's gridded in an inch, so you can actually see. You can count out little squares and see how far you're away from the center objective. It makes it very simple.
Yeah, it's a fantastic. I think it's actually called. It's called Tabletop Battles. I think it's just a very generic name.
I thought it was ITC Battle.
I think that was the old one.
Oh, okay. Okay, it got updated to Tabletop. It's a huge tool. I know some people still use cards. I know Fraser likes showing off his cards, but
he has cool
I like the cards too because it doesn't tell you the rules of a secondary too. So having the cards in hand is a huge thing. I don't know if that's one of your bullet points too. So maybe I'll just let you carry on before I.
Kind of, but if you are using the app, you're still using your cards, right? Yeah. Or if you can use your cards,
you gotta have. It's handy to have cards on hand because the app doesn't actually doesn't have the text of the mission or the secondary or whatever. So it's nice to have somebody with the cards on hand.
Like Sabotage, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people think that you have to be wholly within the building, but really you only have to be within.
Correct.
And
within the building.
Knowing that is, reading the card and saying, it does say within, not wholly within. But the app won't tell you that.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good segue into my next points. If the missions are pre-posted, but even if they aren't, you'll kind of know which missions are going to come up in a tournament where the missions aren't posted. Like, you have your standard 6 that are somewhat consistent across each tournament.
Well, on that point, actually, if you don't mind us digging into your bullets a little bit, if the missions are pre-posted, which obviously you for sure, if you have a list in mind, you have a faction in mind, and the missions are predetermined, is there ever a time, because I think Grey Knights might be an interesting one, are there ever like missions, will there be a mission set where you're like, I'm not bringing Grey Knights? Is it ever that much of a swing, or are you just kind of keeping it in the back of your mind kind of thing?
No. There's never a time I wouldn't bring a specific faction unless it was like layout 7 or 8.
All right.
Across like the majority of the pack.
Fraser's smile just splits in half.
Sorry, again, interrupt. Wasn't that West Coast? Didn't they have 7 and 8 in West Coast?
It's funny because they had a layout. It was 7 or 8 on all of day 1.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think it was 8.
was.
It had the weird squares.
I kind of just flip flop between them because they're effectively the same. There's like two lanes, and then you have to get really close to
Sure.
And then you're in melee threat range.
GW events like the same thing as well. Like the whole first day of Worlds was layout 7 to weed out.
Oh, that's right.
To weed out all the shooting armies.
Jesus.
And then the second day was whatever, like the all the firing lanes went out, like 5 or 6.
Layout 4?
One of them.
Yeah.
But that was the second day. So GW in their events, if it's like a 3 or 4 day event, really like to put in like 2 different days of the skew terrain, and then the day of the finals will be like a more like balanced terrain.
Like a layout 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Poor Tau.
Yep. Just to like pull everybody like kind of out. Yep.
Even though, funny enough, Astra Mill's the one that made it out of the final.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
So they probably had a decent win path. I didn't look at it.
Yeah,
but
the first day. Yeah.
If it was like purely layout 7-8 for 2 days, probably skip the gun lines.
Right.
If you can.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there has historically been worse missions, like more skewed missions. Like wasn't in the Leviathan Players Pack there was like a special rule where like you can't deep strike within X inches of objective or something like that. Scrambler fields. Thank you.
Yes, in that situation, I would probably if it was round 1, 2, or 3, you could probably get away with like maybe hoping to get lucky with your win path.
Sure.
And it's not a big deal. But if it's round 5, 6 and it's a really bad mission for your specific faction, maybe build around that.
I'm glad they took out missions like that.
Yeah, those are rough.
I think it was you that you went. You're playing Grey Knights and you went against T-Suns and Scrambler Fields.
It was last classic on round 3. I was undefeated, and then I hit Kieran's T-Suns on Scrambler Fields.
Yeah.
It was just.
That feels bad.
It felt bad, but it was
It is what it is, right? Like you just gotta play the missions, right?
Yeah, more to what you're saying. As of right now, in the mission pack, there's nothing that you would be like not playing Grey Knights. That's just all pretty standard stuff.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
You know what? A side tangent. Even those missions and stuff is significantly better than the days we had of player place terrain and faction specific secondaries.
I agree.
So thank God we're in the place that we were.
The dark age of 8th and 9th edition.
If you had asked that question in any other edition of the game, it would be like a completely different answer.
Sure. Yeah. Well, which is a good commentary on the state of the competitive pack right now.
Mm-hmm. It's an actual competitive game.
Yeah, minus the.
You could not say that in
minus exploded ordnance. Everything else is fine.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Burden of trust is kind of shit too. But sorry, can I say shit? Are we past 10 minutes? We're good. We got a shrug from production. Very well. Sorry, Dave. Please continue.
Anyways, I'll move on to my next bullet. If the missions are pre-posted, read the mission rules and prepare your deployment plan.
Yeah.
So we could even go into the whiteboard. If you know the layouts, you should be able to know before every mission, it's somewhat matchup dependent, where you're going to stage your shooting platforms, where you're going to stage your fast melee threats, and which shooting lanes you're going to take over your opponent every single game. As long as you kind of know, you can actually, if you have your list determined, you could go through every single layout and sort of figure out what your turn 1-2 game plan is going to be. Outside of turn 1-2, there's too many variables to think about it ahead. But you absolutely can figure out what your game plan is for the first turns 1-2 for every single layout if you really want to put in the time and effort to figure that out.
And then you can use, some of the most basic archetypes, like say like a World Leaders army, like a melee rush army, right? Okay, well I would actually, deploy more like this. Or if I know like a shooting army, I would deploy more like this. And you can kind of get your idea just on those base huge archetypes. Like you don't want to, just World Leaders. Well, I know they could do this. I think you're overcomplicating it.
Yeah.
If you just keep it to like melee rush shooting and maybe mid range, but those are kind of the same. Like the mid range and the melee, or the mid range and the shooty are kind of the same.
Yeah.
So you want to kind of sort it into those 2 buckets there.
Well, another factor that this helps with too is if you're playing a competitive tournament in a competitive atmosphere, you're almost certainly going to be on a clock. So anytime that you can take like some decision factor out of it, like, or even just help you deploy faster, think faster, because you are supposed to be deploying on clock if you're doing it properly, which I would highly suggest people do, especially if you're going into like those armies that are, got a lot of little gribblies and whatnot. The gribblies, your orc players, your Astra Mill players.
The gribbly there,
likes the gribblies. Yeah, if you don't have to spend a bunch of your time deploying, that's an extra 5 minutes at the end of the game. That's clutch. That could be the difference between winning and losing the game, right? So yeah, very good point.
In addition, like if you just don't know what stalwarts is, and now you have to like Google stalwarts pariah mission. And then
Google Star Wars, you're screwed.
Star Wars, yeah.
And deployment. What the hell is Star Wars again?
You just start watching Revenge of the Sith. I don't want to play.
I don't.
Yeah.
Busy.
Look, Anakin's about to turn.
Now this is pod racing. Wait, what? Okay, sweet. Yeah.
And then really everything else is in game kind of outside. There's lots of other things you can do, but my other main tip for when you actually get in game is just take time in your movement phase to plan out your turn. Don't just start moving models. Draw your secondaries. Take 5 minutes. Don't move a model. Just visualize what you're going to do, what's going to move where you're going to shoot at. Pre-measure your opponent's melee threat ranges. So if your opponent has a rhino with a bunch of guys staged behind a piece of terrain and you decide to move up a skirmish unit onto the objective or an important unit onto the objective, pre-measure from the rhino to your unit. Agree with your opponent. We're 14 inches away. So you would need a 5-inch charge or something like that.
Yeah.
And just establish that in your movement phase, and that's going to help you make such better decisions in game, turn to turn. You're going to see massive improvement to your game if you just take 5 minutes in your each movement phase.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then my last little tip is not going to help you win games, but it's going to help your.
Get it out of here.
It's
not
gonna.
Interested.
You're going to appreciate yourself, and your opponent's going to appreciate it. Keep the table state neat.
Targeted.
Don't have dice everywhere. Have your resource
That's
counters clear and accurate, and make sure you're on top of it. And I'm not perfect either. Sometimes my tables can get messy. As long as you're always making an effort, when you have some spare time, pick up your spare dice that are scattered, and your opponent's gonna appreciate you for it, and you're gonna appreciate yourself because now you actually can focus on moving your models and not knocking stuff over.
Well, there's a lot to the game. The game is overly complicated, and if you can streamline it some way, or show tokens of representing one thing or the other, there's less things to memorize that you can actually concentrate on the game.
Exactly.
Right, and you're not saying it's going to win your game, but you know what? It might actually. I should keep a guy on this point and not forget about it. And oh crap, I failed my battle shock there. I have to get someone on there. And like showing a token that unit's battle shocked. Yeah. Could be it could actually make or break a game.
Well, 100% it can, because it takes away a lot of accidental ambiguity, right? Especially like say you've shots fired at Fraser real quick. Fraser has been known to be a little bit sloppy with the dices. And this hasn't never happened in our games before, but I've seen it happen in other games where you've got this like encroaching sea of dice that's kind of, as the game goes on, you don't clean them up, and it's just slowly getting further and further, like the tide.
And Deep Strike there's a dice within 9 inches.
And then you go to roll, we're late in the game, things are, you need to kind of pick up the pace and go fast, and you roll 5 dice, and one kind of tumbles into the pile of dice over there, and you're like, okay, was that my save? Was that my save? Like, usually you can visualize it and see it, but in a tight game, a good save here or there, or a swing of a dice here or there can make the difference. And you don't ever want your opponent being like, shoot, was that the 4-up that actually saved, or was it the 3-up, or what was this, right?
You know what? I highly recommend that battle box.
That's what I was just gonna say. Ever since I got the battle box, my table state has been so much neater.
Nice.
It's such a great organization.
Donated to me last tournament.
Yeah, shout out to who again? Who was the battle box?
That is Tree of Tales.
Yep. Sweet.
I'll leave a link in the description here. It's amazing, and you can get customized. You have a Grey Knight one. I have a few custom markers for Death Guard. It flips out into a box. It organizes your dice. It keeps everything there and neat, and then it's also clear to your opponent as well. So I found my exactly like you said. Like my tables are cleaner. I'm rolling in the box, so like here in Calgary we use what are those little mats? The ones you get at the dollar store. That we use as a little phone.
Oh, like the table
for the layouts.
Yeah.
Okay, they're what, like 1/8 of an inch thick.
Sure.
But they can tilt a dice, and then if you're sitting there arguing with an opponent because this is a pivotal dice roll, like you never want to be in those situations.
Yeah.
I just have a dice box.
It's part of like the pregame conversation too. Is like, okay, like when you roll, Is it going to be?
But I still think it allows for arguments later in the future, right? Because it could be like, no, I've done it for every dice. I'm like, I don't think you have, right? And then now you're just arguing over, and there's no way of, it's like he said, she said kind of argument. You don't know who's right.
Yeah, it's just kind of awkward when it's like, I used to say I'll re-roll anything that's slightly cocked.
Yep.
And then when I roll a dice that's really important and it's slightly cocked and it's showing like a 1.
Right.
It just kind of, yeah, there's a bit of salt there. So
Yeah.
if you can just avoid that altogether, then you may as well.
Yep.
The game experience is better, and you know what? You'll probably get a better sportsman vote too.
Yeah, Fraser.
Right? Like,
what the hell?
You might get a sportsman vote or two.
hey, I vote for him.
I
had a great game.
I occasionally get.
That's just collusion.
Votes.
That's not sportsmanship.
That's not collusion. I don't even know him.
I've started doing the.
I don't even know this guy.
I've started doing the offer your opponent a drink to get best overall special.
Yeah, it's too bad we don't have a bar.
$30.
Yeah. Well, I don't need to do that now because my Amish is not painted well enough to even come close to qualifying.
So it doesn't matter. I was gonna say we should all pitch in and get Fraser one of those battle boxes, but I guarantee it would just be like shoved to the side and dice are still all over the table.
I like when my brain's on the game, like everything else just
you
like
get dialed in. I get it.
Like I have 3 tape measures that I leave at different parts of the table before the game.
Yeah.
Because I just lose them. If I had one, like it takes me like 2 or 3 minutes at a time.
You just steal mine.
I walk out of the house in the morning. It takes me like 15 minutes to find my wallet and keys. Like my brain is like, and then everything else outside of that's like irrelevant.
Yeah, organization is very, very helpful for sure. And it all, like, especially if you're new to the tournament scene, it's all very like chaotic and stressful, and it's long days. We all get tired. Taking out again one more mental thing you don't have to worry about so much. Just being a little bit more.
And some way to upgrade it too, like besides the battle box, having wound markers, laser pointer.
So
that's a huge one
So
too.
handy.
It could stop arguments right on the spot. Like, hey, if I move it here, oh no, we're good, we're hidden. Okay, cool. We've now established that.
Yeah, and declare your intent also. If you're
Yeah.
trying to get a little hair on line of sight, and then you're like, that's not in line of sight. It was like, oh, I declared it. If you want me to move out a little more, but
yeah,
laser eliminates all.
That's a good point. It's a good point on playing by intent, because we all want to, I think, play by intent. Obviously, in a perfect world, all of your movements are to the millimeter, micrometer, and you don't never need to play by intent ever, because everything is super clear and awesome. That's not how games work. Never in the history of Warhammer has that worked that way. So, but hand in hand with playing by intent is actually vocalizing your intent, because I think a lot of people forget that that's kind of part of it. I don't know what your intent is unless you tell me what your intent is.
Yeah, you're like obviously it's an inch off the wall.
Obviously,
like,
obviously
how do you not know that I did that? Right? Like if I didn't stress that to you,
right? It is.
Then how would you know?
That's the whole thing. You tell me what your intent is, and then we're on the same page, and we're good.
But I think at that point too, usually the best move is, keeping an inch off the walls to stop engagement.
Sure.
But if you never said the intent, then you have to kind of say, like, it is what it is. That's where they're lying. Like
100%.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Unless you see, I don't know why people don't do this, but you just take your 3-inch widget and then you take it the 1-inch side and you put it against the wall, and then you put your models against the widget.
Yep.
And then
so those 3-inch widgets, for anyone who's new, they're a 3-inch measurement, 3-inch on the long side. Mm-hmm. There's a 2-inch in the middle, and if you turn it vertically, just like what David was saying, it goes to an inch.
Yeah, usually. I'm sure there's widgets that are weird, but that's
the general
90% of them. Look at that
3,
way,
2, 1.
Cool. Be organized. Get your widgets. Get your tokens, wound markers, all that good stuff.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That's all
We
I
should
had.
start making them. Making some widgets for people.
We should. Some Bloodbath Tactics widgets and dice.
We get some Bayarna dice.
Hey guys, get the memberships in there.
Yeah.
we still need to get David a beard, and then we need to get.
We'll just make the widget in the shape of a mustache
like
for
5 days.
David.
There's a little bit.
Hey, you know what? I see a 5 o'clock shadow.
Hey,
that's
Soul
usually
Patch.
supposed to be after one day, but that's fine.
Yeah.
That should be your nickname, Soul Patch David.
Soul Patch David. I don't know about that.
Sweet. Well, thank you, David. I appreciate the bullets. Those are all fantastic things to keep in mind going into a tournament. Fraser, anything to expand on or things you do special to get hyped?
I think you made some good points. A lot of the things that I find is important before tournaments, and it sounds like, I get it's a casual game, but like people want to be competitive and you want to do well.
Hell yeah, dude.
And if you want to do well, then likely you're going to be a little bit stressed before an event. So I think just managing the stress is important. So what I'll do is, when I wake up by Sunday, I'm fine because I've already been to the event and everything.
Sure.
But when I wake up in the morning on Saturday, what I'll do is I'll go to the gym. I'll go to the gym just because like that's something that I'm familiar with. and I'm not immediately just like waking up to go play 40K. And I find that helps me a lot. Showing up early, just so I can get my army set out. I have my tray with all my models organized in it, so I can just take my stuff to the table and be there. Because you don't want your opponent to start the clock and you're still moving all your stuff to the table. So show up to the table, have all your stuff like readily accessible. And like especially like once you make it through to like top tables, lots of people sweat it and lots of people are making mistakes. So a lot of it's on just trusting yourself, getting into like a routine, just like a tournaments between games, like that kind of stuff where like you're chatting and stuff like that. But if it's an important tournament to you, just try to like manage your stress and stay on top of it and just do things that are familiar to you and like trust your game. Yeah. And even if it's like an army you're unfamiliar with, start a casual conversation, ask lots of questions, which is really important. And I think that answers one of the Discord questions for later about how do you play new armies. But ask lots of questions, get to the table early, and just kind of be in like your element of the game, because you don't need stress, because that's just going to make it worse, right? And if you start thinking about being stressed, then you're going to be stressed. So just kind of like self-regulating yourself during 2 events. Like I'll listen to like music I like on the way to the event, and then kind of take some like downtime before I actually go in. And like even when I went to like Worlds, I was stressed.
Sure, of course.
But before the first game, but like again, like in the morning, I went to the gym and worked out because that's what like I'm familiar with, and everybody has their thing, and that's fine. But like my first game, I played a dude from like New York who won like a 90-player GT.
Oh, wow.
Right. So it's about regulating yourself and trusting yourself as a player, and just doing your game plan and playing unemotionally. And I say that because you get like invested in units and like, what if I kill this? What if I kill, like, trust the math, trust what's worked in your practice games. And you do need practice games. You don't necessarily need to play all the time, but you need that initial kind of like boost to get used to your army and used to how it plays into certain archetypes. And just, like trust your plan. Don't get emotional. Trust the math during the game. Give yourself plenty of time so you're not stressed on time. And just get into like your mental routine, and it helps a lot.
And you know, on that get emotional side of things, dice happen.
Yep.
Okay. It's exciting when they you know, you have sustained and you roll 5 6s, but it's also shitty when you roll 5 1s, right? And you can't get you just have to separate it, because say at the beginning of the game you're not making any of your saves. I almost guarantee it by rounds 3 to 4, 5, you're going to be making all your saves. It's because that's the way it always works in averages. Don't get fixated on, oh, you're hitting everything and I'm losing because of this. That's a big part of the game, and it creates a salty atmosphere too, and it's always going to work out.
Yep. And don't gamble earlier in the game until you have to. Again, trust the math. Trust the math. Clean movements with intent, and then. Like it doesn't hurt like when you're preparing as well, just to go through some like problematic people you think you might run into, like with like good lists at the event, and just like roll the math, or like just write the math out for like one of your units rolling into their unit, so you know like what the probability is. So then you're playing with certainty, and even if the math swings, like you stick to your plan until things start going sideways and you're playing from behind, and that's when you need to start like taking risks. But the biggest thing is trust yourself. And like stay on top of your game and stick to the math and the plan.
I heard
good point.
I heard an interview with what's his name? Adam Camilleri, I believe his name is, from Stat Check. He's an Australian guy who I was mentioning.
He won. Interviewed me in.
Did he?
He was the GW dude.
He was right.
Interviewed me.
Yeah.
He's Art of War, isn't he?
Yeah, he's Art of War down under. So he's an Australian guy who just won a tournament with Knights. That was the guy I was telling that won with, what was it, 1970 points. Because Knights are awkward points-wise. 70 points down, still crushes it. He had a really good comment where it was like his list was basically tailored, kind of what you were mentioning, tailored to fight the big, like meta players in his meta.
Smart.
Tailored into those guys because he could outlist those guys and kind of outplay the bulk of everybody else, like 75% of the rest of the field.
Like beat up mid-table and outlist the top tables.
Correct. Yeah. Outplay the mid tables and outlist the top tables is kind of the idea, and I think that's a really good strategy to go with. And I was actually curious, Dave, just because you're going to be playing Grey Knights, I think you said, in this weekend. It's fairly standard.
Forever.
I'm playing Sisters.
Just out of curiosity, because yeah, you're playing Sisters for sure.
If you actually pulled up with Sisters, I'd be like, you never deserve a golden ticket in your life.
I just take it with Halo Barters.
Hey, you never know, man. Some weird stuff.
I just want a GT.
Well, not even just with Grenades in particular, but you mentioned before that we are in a weird spot in the meta right now because we literally just had Death Guard and World Eaters dropping this weekend, which are they're available to be used in this tournament on the weekend.
They are, yeah.
And we just had Emperor's Children drop, effectively a brand new army as well.
Yeah, so for Calgary meta, like there was basically introduced to 3 new armies.
Yeah, right now, like just before game time, basically.
So just looking back at the past like 3 months, we've had some really weird tournament results where we have a new detachment or a new army come out and they just sweep the entire weekend. Like we had DACA, we had EC, and now we have World Eaters Death Card. It's probably going to be Death Card. That shows results. And then following weekends, we see less results from those specific factions. And, I think that's just because
people are prepared for it.
People aren't prepared for it. The people who are playing those armies have really visualized and, manifested those wins, like done a lot of deep thinking what their game plan is.
Manifesting today.
I've been manifesting a lot of my life.
Start manifesting now for Yanari, buddy.
Everybody watch out. David's manifesting.
Okay. And so
no manifesting in the Ogre's Den bathroom.
I think we're going to see a lot of, Calgary, Alberta in general tends to go big. I think that is one thing that you have to consider with the meta here. Yeah. So anyone think about the Classic, you're thinking about your list this Thursday. We do tend to go quite big here. Like you're going to see a lot of Knights. You're going to see a lot of vehicle spams. You're going to see, and this is one reason why, to put you in the hot seat there, it's why you run 3 Fire Dragons.
15 Fire. Yeah, I honestly, units, outside of Calgary, I don't think and immediately the weekend after when we go to Kelowna.
You might switch.
15 Fire Dragons, they're good in the list, but my bikes are immediately changing to scatter lasers because the two of the big hitters out there are like GSC players. Yeah. Right. So I want to be able to play into that better. So it's a general list, and then kind of like 300 to 400 points like change based upon. Flex. Well, you just look in like the history of that. Like wherever you're going to play the event, and you look like who's been winning, who's been doing well, what kind of armies they're taking, and then just that small little modification to make it just a little more favorable.
And that's smart, right? And like I said, Alberta just tends to just go big.
Yeah, we typically do.
Even at the last team event, like every freaking team that we went into had Chaos Knights and Knights.
2 skill lists at least.
Yeah, at least. Yeah. Even Trident Gold, they had their Death Guard was a skew list. It was hull spam.
That's right. Yeah.
Right, and they had Knights as well.
I think so. Maybe Chaos Knights. I can't remember. Chaos Knights. Yeah. Well, it's when you have a meta that's like you kind of said. We've had 3 new releases, effectively brand new factions. You kind of have to go back to, especially in Solo's event, go back to like your best faction. Who are you best with? Who are you most comfortable with? Yeah. Who do you know which army do you know the best? And play that hand, basically. Even if it's not the hottest meta player at the moment, I think that's probably your safest bet in a Solo's event.
Yeah, and this isn't to talk down on anybody bringing these armies, but statistically, they're not going to win the event.
You don't think
so?
It's
all going to, less than a 50% win a chance, right? It all comes down to win path. There's so many variables that affect any individual from getting to a X and O state that, you just play your best. You take your fate through the win path. Like it's completely random, more or less. Yep. So whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Don't look at me like that.
It's random as in it's out of your control.
It's completely out of your control.
I played Death Guard twice last year in the fucking Alberta class.
Oh, did you really?
Back-to-back games, yeah.
Well, they're going to be way better now.
And even if they are way overtuned, let's say Cass brings the most busted list.
Which is what?
Which he will.
We'll
get to that. We'll grill him in a minute here.
It's a 6-round event. There's still a really high possibility he gets into something on round 4, 5, 6. That's just a hard counter to him when he loses. It's possible.
Totally.
I don't know what hard counters
I don't know
right
either.
now, but we'll find out. Maybe.
Okay, I mean, if we want to segue into that, with Death Guard, and I think this is one of the questions. Or do you want to wait till the questions?
We can probably wait till the questions to get the details of it. But if you want to...
Stay tuned.
If you want to... We can skip my seat and just kind of go into what your thoughts are going into the tournament this weekend. Like, where's your head
Well,
at?
it's a lot of the points were already made. Staying organized. I know I've... the battle box thing to me is like one of those biggest things. And I've... got David into it. Fraser's going to start playing battle boxes.
Yeah, one day.
But it is about being organized and just eliminating excess when you go into a table. So like you don't want to have all these things coming at you, and you're asking questions about a new army. You're asking, this rule, and the game is so overly complicated that you want to simplify it the best you can to focus on your game and your plan. And I don't want to sit there and go to a Yunari, and I'm so glad you actually have that table because it's just like I don't know.
Good.
Now every time in my movement phase, you want to take 5 minutes. I'm taking 10 to 15 minutes understanding what the hell is happening on the Yunari side because they're playing with me.
One single movement mistake into Yunari
right?
is immediately an auto lose.
Yeah, right. So trying to prepare that way, and then I do reread my rules the day before. Funny enough, and admittedly, I think this was probably back in June or July last year, and I was playing Sisters, and I didn't realize this is before the Codex came out. It was Index, but I didn't realize Paragons could fall back and shoot.
Oh, jeez.
Right, like shit, like I didn't, and then I read it before a tournament. And
did that happen with you too?
I read it before a tournament, and I was like, oh my god, thank God I was doing this in practice games because I did not realize this. No doubt. And then I used it in a tournament. So rereading the rules, I think, is super helpful because you're going to come across something. There's a character in the new Death Guard Codex. His strength actually went up one. Right. I might have missed that because I know it's strength 6. It's actually strength 7 now.
There you go.
There's little things like that. So I do that. I tend to try to relax the night before. I don't try to do anything.
Yeah.
I usually actually go for a beer or something, and hang out with a friend, just kind of get the tournament out of my mind.
Yeah.
And then go home and go to bed. I don't want to overanalyze and get an analysis paralysis. Like I don't want to sit there like, oh my god, I can't do this, and then overload my brain and then wake up in the morning without any sleep.
You actually lose sleep because your brain's just stimulated thinking about what it's going to do.
I have that problem a lot
on the Saturday night.
Yeah,
I have 3
The Friday night usually for me, I'm just because I'm going over my stuff in my head. Yeah. What if this happens? How do I play this? I have to honestly, not to promote drugs too much, but some CBD oil. Knock it right out.
Yep.
Nice.
It's nice.
Nice
no THC. Canada. Yeah, we're in Canada. This is all legal, 100%. For those of you who have the stress thoughts at night, little 0 THC CBD oil, boom, put you right up.
And it's funny.
You looked interesting.
I actually think I like tournaments that do lay out the rounds for you. And I do like knowing my matchup the night before. But knowing the matchup the night before, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Then I'm overthinking it, right? Because then I'm like, oh, I'm going against these guys. They're going to deploy like this and this. And then now I get 3 hours sleep because now I'm overstimulated because now I'm trying to think of how to play round 1.
For sure.
Then you're host, I think it's a give and take, right?
But if you have the missions out, you can think about it a week ahead and get all that thinking out of the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Before the event starts.
Yeah, that's true. I was going to say, speaking of you are going into a situation where you are playing effectively a new faction, similar, but there's a lot of new differences, especially with new detachment and all that stuff. I think the one hard part that I would anticipate is the pregame chat. How what are the how do you decide? It's kind of a thing you have to decide all the time. But what is worth telling your opponent, and what is
nothing?
Is not valuable.
But then you can have a 10-minute pregame chat. Is that you're just willing to do that, or is that just? The way it goes?
I think laying it all out and setting the expectation is more important than leaving things out and then be you didn't tell me that.
Sure.
And you don't want to be in a situation they call it to you he's hiding things from me or something. You you just set the expectation at the beginning.
To be honest, I find it flows a lot better if you give a summary at the beginning. Like each player gives a 3 or 4 minute TLDR, and then during the movement phase or an applicable phase for the first couple rounds, that's when you're because for me you tell me about Death Guard before the game. By the end of my deployment, it's gone.
Oh, 100%.
Constant reminding.
But then I'm that's when, as an opponent, it's almost your responsibility to ask a lot of questions as well, so you're managing properly, and then you just have to hope that your opponent's not the kind of person to let you walk into something that you weren't aware of, like rules wise.
And that's the next segue I want to get into too. Something I do during the tournament. So that was everything I did before. During tournament, I ask so many questions. I'm always asking questions. Yeah. I'm probably talking their ear off, just the amount of questions I'm asking.
In your movement phase.
Yeah, and in my movement phase, also in theirs when they're moving too. Like I'm always asking, just because I'm not going to remember all the rules. They're going to remember all the rules, and if we can just like keep the conversation going, they're going to do the exact same. I'm showing this is how the game should be played, and they're going to ask the same of me, and then I'm going to be telling them all the rules and answering all their questions. And I think that like that just creates a better game, a more clean game. And the score will reflect it for sure.
Well, it's oftentimes in the game because it is so complicated, and because there's no way I can know all your rules. You can't know all my rules. It's just not going to happen that way.
Knights, dude.
I have 3 rules. Sorry. I do know my rules.
Kill Warlord bad.
That's right. I'm going to kill that guy really hard. Oftentimes I find that you are almost in a game of the 2 players versus the game state, right? You're like, I want to make sure that you know exactly, and this is how I think very high level players also kind of think, is like, I don't want to gotcha you. I don't want to win because you didn't know something. I want you to have all the information. I want you to know exactly how you can beat me, and then I'm going to still beat you.
You know, gotchas can only get you so far.
100%.
Yeah.
They're a crutch. If you're actually, I don't know anybody who actually relies on them. That plays competitively. This guy. But because they're
Grey Knights could uppy downy. It's ridiculous. That would have been nice to know.
Mists of what? Mists of Humos?
What do you mean that guy's just leaving?
You know, to Dave's credit too, Mist is one of the most powerful strategies in the game.
Yes.
And he will tell you rounds 1, game. 2, and 3-ish.
No, I've seen Dave say it the whole way through.
Okay.
He'll turn 5. He'll be like, I'm gonna miss there, just so you know.
but if he's told you about
sometimes
missed
it's a
in
bluff.
the last like 6 months, then he's clearly lying because he's
because he hasn't been playing that attachment.
That's true.
Don't go close.
My whole army can mist.
Remember, Miss Demos does exist. You're like,
my army can miss.
Technically, it does exist. Just not on
exist.
the table at that
In
time.
this
say,
detachment.
The only, well, not the only exception. The army with probably the most gotchas right now is going to be Yunari for sure. Like that's. So many gotchas. So like it's a tough one. Like you like for people who don't know, Chris kind of or Cass made mention of it that you have an actual like laminated cheat sheet of here are the janky things I can do, and that's very considerate.
David and I talked about it after Fools, and we felt like that was really important to have because if you're playing Yunari and in any of your phases, if you shoot wrong, if you move wrong, or if you charge the wrong thing or set up the wrong thing to charge or ingress in the wrong spot, you're immediately losing the game.
Yeah, if you do anything.
In any of the 5 turns.
Right.
So it's like you need to have all the information all the time or it's going to be like the least fun game you've ever had.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and Matt Sector, he printed off his stratagems for the auxiliary cadre.
Yeah.
Those stratagems, like if you look at they're 2 paragraphs each of them.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of rules and a lot of stipulations with them. Just having that, and he just hands them to the opponent because he explains them. And then eventually he hands it to them like, hey, maybe you should read because your reading comprehension could be different than your listening comprehension.
For sure. Yep.
Right? Here it is. And I think having that tool as well, especially for complicated armies, is something to consider. And you know, I bought the data cards for Death Guard.
Oh, nice.
Just to show like, hey, this is actually what they are. And I'm going to have them all the units that I'm playing.
Did they have
which you'll never know what they are.
Okay,
and
stay
the
tuned.
contagions, and like what the rules of the contagions are, and what the wording is. You know, something that the contagions do is -1 to save. A lot of people think it's just extra AP.
Right.
I'm affecting the save characteristic, so that's why. And we mentioned this in the podcast before.
Yeah.
You know, if I have an AP 0 bolter shooting at you, you don't get the benefit of cover. Right, because it's an AP 0, you're not going to get the benefit of cover.
You don't go back to your 2
from 3 to 2. Right.
You don't go back to your 2.
But like, because I'm affecting the save characteristic, I'm not adding AP on.
Correct. Yeah.
So things like that, where like, hey, this is the wording, it's save characteristic. Oh, you have ignore mods, then it's not going to affect you because I'm not adding AP on.
Mm-hmm.
Armor contempt. Well, your save is already at minus. Yeah, you know, like if you armor contempt with Grey Knights, your save's already at 3.
Right. You're not going back to the 2 because your save itself has been modified.
Your save characteristic is 3.
Right.
Or -1. So
you're right. Yes.
And having that verbiage there and just showing the opponent is enough.
Very helpful.
Yep.
Sick.
So I mean, that was me. Ben, what do you do before tournament besides
you guys
a bunch of drugs?
I just get totally.
Yeah.
I just get wasted.
Fentanyl Ben.
Yeah.
In the corner.
I'm here to submarine.
My knights go through the walls. The knights go forward. You guys actually honestly, you guys touched on everything that I could kind of think of. You do want to, again, analyze your local meta, kind of have if you're playing enough games in a given month, you usually have an idea of what's hot and what's not. The whole idea of building your list to fight, say, the top 10 guys in the event, and then outplaying the rest is probably the direction I would tend to go. You can only custom, especially with this is not gonna be a surprise to anybody. I'll be playing Knights this weekend. Coming at it from the Knights' perspective.
What?
Shut up, Fraser.
I got to change my whole list now.
I played Necrons last RTT, okay? Yeah. I play Necrons too. I'm not a one-trick pony.
Nobody's worried about you. No.
Wow,
you actually top-tabled at Fools. There you go.
Yeah, I did good.
He's coming back for it.
I'm always worried about Ben.
There's only... I was always going to say to that effect was there's only so much flexibility I have in the Knights faction, right? There is really only, say, 4 or 5 really good big Knights, and then you have 2 armigers, types of armigers. And then allies, and that's it, right? So your list you're a little bit more limited than some other factions, but like I'll tell you right now, and this is not going to be a secret at all, Canis Rex stonks go up when all of a sudden Death Shroud have 4 wounds each, right? I'm not afraid. I would tell my list right now, but Canis Rex and the Calidus Assassin, so making the Death Guard have a -1 damage in shooting and combat now available to them. But it still costs 2 CP. If I have a Calidus nearby, it's now costing 3 CP. Now you might be in trouble. So these are the kind of like counter considerations that you have to take into effect early and often, and that gets you ahead.
He's actually playing the Poxwalker detachment.
I don't believe that for a second. I think
I actually just bought 90 Poxwalkers. I did.
I know James is for sure, but
is he actually?
He posted a bunch of pictures of him. I mean.
No, I don't know. I don't know what he's playing.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I posted
sorry,
my
James.
list in the group chat like before lists do for Fools.
Yeah, you know where you're going. Yeah.
And if anybody thinks I'm changing anything, you know what? Maybe I am changing my list.
I'm trying to think
it's
of this.
2 CP -1 damage shoot and melee now.
Yeah, in the index detachment, right?
News to me.
Is that the Vectorum?
Virulent
Vectorum. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I do pre. I think you guys touched on it. Like, just get a good. Honestly, here's a good tip. Get a good night's rest. And this sounds like I'm being your mommy or dad, but drink water. He's super good. And armigers. I'm actually going to use Cass's models to beat him because I still have your sisters and I will be playing them.
Okay.
That's my plan.
We'll see.
What are you playing, Cass?
I am going to give the new Death Guard Codex a whirl.
Oh, you don't say. Spoiler alert.
Holy crap.
I'm going to see how it goes. It's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
I think it's... if we're gonna get to some questions here,
I was gonna say we can get into Discord kind of community questions.
How many,
the first 2 are how do you beat Death Guard?
How many practice games are you getting before the event? Like how many?
I've had like 5. Whoa!
Holy shit! Okay, word.
All of us are like, whoa!
That's more than I've played in the last like 3 months.
Yeah, I've got not enough. But if you're playing a new effectively a new army, it's
and like there's like it's some sloppy play too, some of them. But I am learning the rules. No.
No.
I mean,
don't be ridiculous.
I've lost all of them.
No, not a chance.
How was your butt, Aiden? How was your butt?
Oh, no.
Well, you were texting while I was winning.
I thought he had won. Because I
was just fucking with you.
Yeah. You can't understand sarcasm over text.
Yeah,
or I can't anyways. I can't even understand it.
Well, okay, so one segment I want to get into. So like we mentioned at the beginning, we asked the community some questions they want to ask us, and we made a little separate little tab on the Discord there for anyone who wants to go and drop some questions. Feel free. We'll make this maybe a regular segment. So. If there's not too many questions, and we can fit it all in the hour and a half.
We'll throw in like the theme of the video, and it also might be interesting to take a poll for like what kind of battle report we want to see.
100%.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Yeah. So the first question is this is from Christopher Blood Angels. With the new codexes dropping regularly, DG and WE, World Leaders, how do you get up to speed with their builds, tactics, and gotchas quickly? Anyone got a question for that?
Ask lots of questions.
Ask lots of questions, but like go onto YouTube and watch all the content that comes out. Right, Art of War puts out really good like codex analysis and detachment analysis.
If you don't have a lot of time, Auspex Tactics.
Sure.
It's this really like condensed version of like what's good. Maybe go on to like Tactical Tortoise has videos of like, oh, these lists are the ones that are winning for this. And then you kind of go through and be like, oh, okay. And it kind of gives you like a little bit of a rundown if you don't have a lot of time. But a lot of it's going to be like asking questions during the game.
Yep.
Just like, hey, remind me, what can this do again? Do you have an enhancement for this? Do you have assault? Where can I move? And a lot of it's, again, like sticking to your own game plan with an informed, like, by your opponent, like, basically.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah. Before you get to the table, hit YouTube. Like, there's tons of free content out there for as soon as a codex launches, sometimes
subscribe
before
to
it launches.
Tactics.
Subscribe to Bloodbath Tactics, because you can find out here, obviously.
Yeah.
If you want the index death card information.
Yeah, no kidding.
That was just great timing. We did that so good.
Is everything for Death Guard on Wahapedia?
No.
Ooh, it's a good question. I have no idea.
So when lists are
Probably
released, look at Cass's Death Guard list, look
Yeah.
at the data sheets, go onto Wahapedia, and then you can actually look at all his rules and, get some of the...
Get the general idea of what I'm trying to do.
Exactly.
And then once they're on the
Yeah.
table, obviously ask 1,000 questions.
Yeah,
for sure.
Because it may come up differently. Like, I was mentioning the Tactical Tortoise video for the Fool's Errand, and no offense to him or nothing, but when he was describing what I did, it's not what I did at all. So
Yeah.
knowing the rules is good, but then asking questions because I'm going to do something maybe completely different.
Right.
And if you have a lot of time to learn rules, and to be honest, this really helps like newer players like learn their armies as well. Watch like a top table battle report.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because seeing like the either your army or the opponent's army's like deployment is going to tell you, okay, this is the general game plan. This is where things are to do secondaries in the first turn, depending on whether they go first or second. And this is how everything's set up. And if it's like a good event, you can expect, okay, well, if I'm worried about the good players, then like this is generally kind of like the structure that's going to be followed.
Yep.
And you don't even need to watch the whole game. You can just watch like the first couple turns of like setup.
Yeah.
And then that really helps. That's like the next level of information on top of like the rules.
Yeah.
Something else we didn't... Do you want to touch on, the list building component for playing your turn 1 secondaries? Because that's just something we didn't mention when we were talking about what you can do pre-tournament to prepare and do better at a tournament.
List building with, you said secondaries in mind?
Yeah, like specifically your opener on turn 1.
Like, what if you draw contain?
Oh, like a deployment, like where you're deploying based on your secondaries.
Like, what if you draw containment? Like, do you have 2 throwaway models that can go on the outside and go in the shooting lanes to do it for you?
Do you have something that's going to be able to go in the center and do area denial?
Yeah, or deny the opponent's area denial.
So generally, it's really tempting to take a really, really killy list. But realistically, if you're going tactical, which most competitive players in 10th edition are doing, you're going to want something to do action.
Except for David.
And if you don't have chaff, you don't have either fast moving or like cheap units to be in corners, to be present for engage, for containment, to go stand in the middle turn 1, like set up on the edge of your deployment zone, run at the middle, do cleanse or like whatever locus to get you the points, then it's going to be your expensive units doing it. So it's finding the balance in your list of like screening units are kind of the next level, but you don't want to be using your expensive units to do these little chores that are going to leave them in vulnerable positions for your opponent. And likewise, when you're playing against somebody and they don't have a lot of chaff, don't ignore the chaff, kill the chaff. So then for scoring, they're using their expensive units to stand on objectives, to go around, to score different parts. And it's an important list building component because on paper, like the stuff looks boring, but it's really important to have on the tabletop.
Yeah, and I think as well said, to the point, like killing the chaff, like knowing the pace of the game. So if the opponent is drawing, say, a lot of killy secondaries early, they're going to need that chaff and more stuff for actions later because they're going to be drawing all those actions. So something to be aware of in the game as well. But that's somewhere else. Anyways,
Very good point. I can hit us up with another one.
Yeah,
if you'd like. We got from our good boy Jake, Mr. Snake Eyes himself. He was asking, "Hey Cass, Jake's scared of Death Guard, as I think is a reasonable fear. What are some tips for playing against them?"
So they're generally the same.
Yeah, sure.
Like they have the exact same weaknesses as before. They do suffer from movement. Having a highly mobile army is a very, very apparent weakness for them. Shooting armies can be as well. They like before in the index they didn't have actually really good data sheets, but they had really good rules to kind of support it. Now they do have good data sheets with the rules to coincide with it, so it makes it more of a threat. But their weaknesses are still the same.
Sure.
They are really good in melee. They have some good shooting. They play a really, really good mid-range game and can kind of pivot. But if you can outmaneuver them and screen them out, I think you're in a fine spot.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
I think that like a lot of like they got a significant damage buff, but a lot of the stuff that you're putting out that they can see because they're slow, so you kind of get to manage the pace of the game. A lot of stuff you're putting out is stuff that you kind of expect to die anyway. I think the biggest change for me personally is the death shroud, being 100%. Able to come in outside of 6. Mm-hmm. So being aware of what makes your units afflicted, maybe what chaff is close to you that can advance into you to make you afflicted. To then at the end of the movement,
see, you've been thinking about me a lot.
Bring in. It's just
that's a huge consideration.
To be honest, like if something's in deep strike, I can manage it really well with like rangers, warp spiders, keep stuff where I need to be. If it's on the board and it's advancing around, it's a little more complicated. But you just need to be aware of like, okay, ask the question. Plague Marines, when they shoot me, they put me in. They make me afflicted. Can this affect like Death Shroud coming in? When does being afflicted expire from that?
Yeah.
Like and that biggest like ingress change is the first thing that like 6 Death Shroud coming in with a Lord of Contagion will kill almost anything in the game, and they will like break the back of your army if they can like keep like kind of like pogoing between people, and they are a pain in the butt to kill. So as long as you can be aware of what makes you afflicted and keep them outside of that 6-inch, if they're in deep strike, it's easier, much easier to manage, and that's where that chaff game comes in. Is you're preserving if you bring like hammer or like whatever that one's called where you can shoot me
hammer
and like make me or choose something to be afflicted, then it's kind of like, okay, what am I supposed to do right now?
Outside of 12.
That's the biggest change for that a lot of people are going to notice is being able to manage those auras, because now they could kill you better if you're in it, but the biggest thing is like the big Death Shroud brick, which they're probably too expensive to bring 2 of them, especially because you want Morty and like other like big players on the list. Just being aware of what makes your units eligible for the 6-inch and just leaving stuff outside that he's not going to want a 6-inch on in that. So Death Shroud gets stranded on the board. And that's when you leave them in the position to be slow. But the only exception to Death Guard being slow apart from their vehicles is that new Death Shroud Deep Strike. Because I want Cass to either have to 6-inch stuff that he doesn't want to or rely on a 9-inch charge.
Yep, 100%. And just quick for my own understanding, the deep striking just outside 6 of a afflicted, thank you, target is on the Death Shroud data sheet itself. It's not a detachment thing. It's just them straight up. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's huge. It's a game changer for sure. Game changer.
Yeah, controlling the contagion is good.
Yeah,
like that's definitely one way of doing it and stopping those deep strikes. If I am running Death Shroud, right? Like, or if any of them. But let's get real here. Everybody's running Death Shroud. Everyone's running Death Shroud. So like even like Materian's Hammer Hull spams, like you're running Death Shroud.
Yeah. Especially when you can just pick something to be
fantastic unit
across the board.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is that Death Guard's expensive.
Yes.
So Death Shroud bricks with the character are expensive.
Expensive
and then if you want the Plague Marines with the characters and the Rhino, that's another brick. And then if you're bringing Morty, that's another brick. And then that's like 1,200, 1,300 points.
It's not much.
And then you're running out of room for drones and chaff and stuff. So it's going to be a balance. Stuff's expensive, and it'll be like difficult to play against. But it is still fundamentally a slow army outside of that new.
That's just it. Like I said, like it's all the same weaknesses before.
Yep.
Again, I think the data sheets are a lot stronger, but they're not broken. I think their points actually kind of match. I think bloat drones, heavy bloat drones, are actually a little undercosted, to be honest.
That seems to be the consensus.
But everything else is pretty bang on for the most part.
Cool.
I wouldn't consider them absolutely broken. Like I do think he's actually absolutely broken.
It is,
but I don't think that Death Guard is. I think that they're very, very good though.
I think that he's still head and shoulders the best army in the game.
I would agree with that. I'm on that one. Are you on that train?
Yeah.
David's on that train?
I think that's correct, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 4 train. Choo-choo.
Ticket to ride. Do you have John's question up by chance? Sorry, did you have him up over there, Mr. Dave?
Okay.
John's question just after there was some chat in the show questions thing. That's fine. Just go past it to John's question.
Fraser, please, when you're chatting, please know where you're chatting.
Go chat elsewhere, man. We got to keep
you're the
orderly.
one chatting in the podcast questions.
Oh, my bad. Yeah. Well, Tarek was having a conversation there too.
No.
So
he asked a question.
He asked a question.
So I just hopped in.
You got John's?
Yep. Yeah.
Go for it.
So as a hobby veteran of 29 years, I would love to hear y'all discuss ways to find paths to victory using older collections built by the rule of cool over meta chasing. And this was John Modlich.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very interesting one. I am not in that category of person who has played for what did you say? Friggin' 15 years or 30 years? Jesus. I have played since the beginning of 10th edition. So, but I think that the general idea would be kind of what we spoke to before was play. Don't worry about meta chasing so much. People are going to do it. There's going to be new hot armies. It's all good. But if you can really faction focus, become an absolute expert at what your faction does and how you play it, you're never going to have a hard time, really, because like someone like Skari is a fantastic example. Sure. Drukhari are not a strong faction right now by any means, but man just makes it work because he knows it so well, and he has so much experience playing it. Yeah. You can become a specialist, so just do that.
You know, I have a good example for that. Brandon Powell. Mm-hmm. You know, he comes in with these crazy Highlander lists, and he's still winning a tournament.
Yeah, he's no love for Brandon. What the heck?
No, I love Brandon. Like even last year at the Classic, they played him in the finals, and I walked up to him. I'm like, so I was expecting to play the Thousand Suns, but now we have to play. I'm looking at your list, and I don't actually know what's going on. He's like, yeah, no, I kind of like just kind of threw it together, and it's been like sort of working. And I'm like, cool, man.
But that played him top table in Fool's Errand.
Cool, but that only comes with intimate knowledge of how your faction works and how your army works. Right?
I think on top of that, like a knowledge of the game in general.
Sure.
And if you have really good like game fundamentals, general like movement, understanding of scoring, when to recycle secondaries, when to give up points, when you need to like go for the points, asking lots of questions and playing good players. It doesn't matter what your list is. If you're playing good players in an interactive game, in practice games, or even in tournaments, the best way to get better because it's consecutive games to fix your mistakes. And you're just asking a lot of questions. It doesn't matter what your list is. 85% of like Warhammer is like the player, and I will stand by that. So just having like good fundamental like Warhammer, thinking about your decisions, good deployment, and setting yourself up for success at the events is going to be the biggest variable.
I was just making eyes.
Okay, should we get one more question and that's it?
We can probably hammer out a couple quick ones. We can hammer. Here's.
I'm going to show everybody what the whiteboard looks like.
I want to get all. I really want to get all of our questions in. So let's just kind of like let's
hammer them out.
Get them out quick. Next one was from what was his name? I believe this is Billy. He's got a different name on the Discord. I think this is Billy, but he says, as someone who got recently back into the hobby after 15 years away, the game has changed a great deal. I find myself struggling with deploying an army in an efficient or effective way. What tips or tricks can you provide? We do have the whiteboard, but this is I think, generic enough question that we kind of touched on. You did just briefly a minute ago, where when you're deploying, you want to have a game plan. Fairly obvious. You want to have a game plan for all the units you're placing, right? Yeah. You want to have all the secondaries in mind. Okay, these two units can go and get containment turn one, because drawing containment turn one, containment and like extend battle lines turn one feels amazing, but you have to have the units in place to do that, right? Sure. So these guys are going to go. Yeah, we can hold it up.
Okay. Well, Dave, you want to touch on that one too, because I think you touched on one of your points.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first and foremost, just make sure your opponent can't activate you against you turn one. So just hide all your stuff, or hide as much stuff as you can. And that's the most important thing, is just hide your stuff. And then once you get that down, you can sort of think about doing the secondaries you need to do, and then staging your gun lines. But most of it kind of helps if you're keeping everything safe. Just plan your game plan around your important units and what they need to do turn 1, 2.
So like a good example would be if you're deploying. This is like layout 1. So I know that there's a long lane that reaches all the way down here. There's a lane that goes up here, and I basically don't want anything visible on my side of the board. So like this is usually off limits for deployment turn 1.
Very high tech.
This off limits, and down here sometimes there's a line through here depending on the terrain.
It depends.
But generally you're gonna want a lot of your longer range shooting kind of over here, so we can go out challenge this lane, or come here challenge this. A lot of your melee stuff you're gonna want to be here, here, or here, so it can go up to here and it can stage out of line of sight from up here. And this is going to be where a lot of your game comes from. So you want, if you go first, to be able to have a board presence. You don't want to be relying on going first or second. So you need like cheap chaff that's able to run in the middle, do whatever actions. And you want to be able to get your important units up so they can play the game next turn. And by play the game, I mean be able to reach the objective that's over here and the objective that's over here, so your opponent's not getting ahead on primary early. The only thing to note is if you're coming up onto this objective, you have to watch potential units coming in here on deep strike, and that's where a lot of chaff coming out and sitting out over here or over here can kind of push out this deep strike. So just keeping as much of your stuff safe as possible, and you want to be the first one to activate.
Yeah.
So it's harder with like some slower armies, but you want to be the first one to come into this lane to shoot at something that's over here. You want to be the first one to come up, shoot. You don't want to be shot first. So it's about giving up those cheaper pieces early to get ahead on scoring. And if you have a secondary or an army rule, or like a stratagem that's like sticky or something, you really want to put the pressure on your opponent early. So for example, like Yanari, I have my Rangers here. They can either string across both, or they can be kind of in the middle over here, and immediately they can challenge middle, immediately go over here. And if they shoot me off, then I get my army rule, and then I'm stickying something. Death Guard of Poxwalkers, they're going to set up here, and you have sticky in
one of them.
In one of the detachments, one of two that you might be using.
One of two. I'll be honest, it's one of two.
Champions are...
Yeah.
So you just want your units to be present, but you don't want to give them up early. And a lot of this comes from pre-measuring. So if your opponent has a tank here, okay, how far can it move? Okay, let's say this is 6 inches and this is 6 inches. So I'm going to make all my measurements from right here to see what he's able to see and keep stuff in this terrain out of that line of sight. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's like forcing the scoring on your opponent and getting ahead. And then they have to give up resources. So that's kind of like the shtick.
No, that's really well said. David, did you want to?
Nope.
Oh, I thought you had something to say. But no, that's really well said. That's exactly how the early game kind of goes. And I like that you're using like to get the game going. Like right now, when you're staging up and you're just trying to get those early scores, it's called the skirmish, right? Yep. Like you're just there to skirmish the game and see where it's going. Try to score as many points as you can, or try to, if you can't score, get those resources, get that CP going up. Yep. Because when the game starts, you're going to want that resource.
Yeah. And I really like pressure armies that say, okay, now I'm on the middle. You have to deal with me, and you have to come up to deal with me, or I can sticky it. Or if you don't and you just want to play the slow primary game, guess what? Now everything's staged, and it can see you on your expanses, so I'm going to stop you from scoring. So applying like the scoring pressure early and having the game knowledge and list to be able to do that is pretty important.
Massive.
Yeah.
Next question.
It's going to be from Tarek.
Okay.
What are some effective ways to practice and study and develop as a competitive player to get from a mid-table bully into a consistent 4-1 performer, especially when you don't have too much time to grind games?
I would say YouTube is your number one resource there. When you have some downtime, listen to some podcasts, watch battle reports, like we said before, is a big one. When you're painting, listening and watching battle reports, and maybe you don't be watching as much, but listening and just like getting in. You kind of have to have a bit of obsession with this game to really excel to the next part. And that obsession comes in with like on your spare time. What are you doing? Are you watching the next Star Wars show, or are you studying your army?
The Star Wars episode today.
Yeah, so that's topical.
Spoilers.
Spoilers.
I would also say in the practice games you are getting, try and get games with people perform a little better than you. I always find that if you are losing games, you're learning more, and that usually means just playing against people who are performing better than you at tournaments.
And I think just taking your time, trusting the math, and like slow decision making, and like coming from like a 3-2 up to like eventually like a 6-0 or 5-0 like average player is going to be a lot of just consistent good decision making. Because when you're playing good players, you make one mistake and your game's probably over.
Yeah.
And if it's on dice, like that's fine. We always play on the dice. But you just want to be putting yourself in the best position. As I said, like unemotionally, taking your time during movement, not rushing things, and just keeping, as long as you can keep a level head, you just trust your game. And again, learn from practice games, but a lot of it's just taking your time during like decision making, because even like small decisions that seem kind of irrelevant, well, now I can see the back of your base and you just lost your unit.
Yeah, well, they all stack up, right? Yep. It compounds, like positive decisions compound positively, right?
Yep.
So, that just goes to the point too of like, specializing your army and getting the reps in, and then knowing those rules. So it's one less thing for you to think about. Then you can actually start thinking about the opponent and then playing the game, right?
And getting quality reps too. Like if your opponent makes a mistake and then that's the game, you like, why don't we just reset past that point so we can actually have a good practice game as opposed to just like playing out a slaughter. Yeah.
Cool.
And then Alex L. As someone who plays a less popular faction, I would just like to hear some general philosophies for deployment, movement, scoring. what are the core concepts of playing with and against certain archetypes, and what are the big brain moves for those archetypes?
We've kind of covered a lot of that.
I think so.
Right, as far as like deployment and stuff. What are big brain move against the archetypes? I mean, you want to like try to. It's going to be hard to explain, but playing around like fights first and stuff like that can be a little bit technical. Learn the ways around that.
Stiff arming melee pressure. So asking threat ranges, advance and charge, keeping, because as soon as melee pressure gets into you, that's when the game gets like unmanageable. Yeah. So just keeping your distance, willing to be giving up like points to get ahead on the killing game against melee pressure sometimes. Just knowing where all your opponent's stuff is during their turn, and then what they're able to do to you once you hand the turn over to them is a lot. Because if you do the math in your head of like, oh, if I move this here, then I might get a few shots here, but then I'm going to lose the whole unit. And 100%. And just kind of talking again, the discussion with your opponent of where can this go and what can it do, and like the pros and cons, like is this worth it, is going to kind of solve a lot of your problems in all your matchups.
Well, we mentioned it super early. It's just pre-measuring the threat, right? Like, okay, if your unit gets out of this rhino and then moves this far, what is like the maximum range? Like if they box cars a charge, where is it at? Then you can obviously dial it in a little bit more specific than that. But also you do the same thing against shooting armies. Okay, what only can shoot 24 inches? Okay, what's the movement on that? Okay, it moves 10, shoots 24, effective range of 34. I can stay out of that, right? So this is all the stuff you should be asking every single game, all the time. And I was going to say the next thing that can bring you from like a mid-table player to the next level is knowing your opponent's army. And that's something that can, unless you play that faction as well, that just comes with reps, right? Good quality reps, getting in a lot. Because a lot of times when you're practicing, you're like limit testing. How much do I need to put into this unit to kill it? How much can my unit take in response? And if you don't know those numbers, then you're kind of just winging it. Right, so try not to wing it.
Trust the math.
Trust the math.
I think we're almost at time here, though.
Yeah.
We'll get this
Got
last
one more?
question. Yeah. Identify threats versus things you can safely ignore in unfamiliar matchups. I usually find out by getting my face kicked in, and I do way better in the second game against
that was from our good buddy Nigel.
Yeah. You kind of just answered that. It's just
we kind of did touch on that. Yeah.
Establish threat ranges.
And like in a quick version too, like if you're playing knights, fire dragons are your main threat.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Like you got to know what's the thing that can kill your guys and kill them the most effectively, and then that's where you know.
Yeah, if you're playing a stat check or you're playing a skew list, you need to know what is the thing that hurts me and avoid it, nerf it, kill them, whatever the case may be. Just go for it.
But I think that's going to be it for the day. I hope this helps, and we got this big tournament this weekend, and I'm super excited for. I feel like we haven't played a tournament in a month. I guess you have, but
so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, let's do it.
Placing?
Yeah, placing. You guys don't like that?
Yeah.
This guy's never finished fourth at a tournament in his life.
That's true. That's true.
Great.
That's true. I love it.
Yeah, but thanks, guys. And you want to send us off there, Ben?
Yeah, thank you so much, you guys. We mentioned at the top, mentioned at the bottom. Don't ever forget to hit the like button, get in the comments, and smash the notification bell. What's that? What's happening?
I was getting away.
Smash it! Smash notification. I think you're giving me something to punch. Give me something to punch, Cass. Smash notification bell, so you never miss an episode.
Just reaches over
of Bloodbath Tactics.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, take care, guys.
Bye.